Thank you. Dear Rosario, dear host, dear ministers and excellencies, dear social partners, my dear Commissioner Šuica, she was not here, but I'm so happy that we were also joined by her in this forum. As I also said yesterday in our first engagement, Porto is so important in the political geography of Europe. It is the city of Europe's social ambition, and the place that we gather also to be able to take our social agenda forward, taking into consideration the current challenges and realities. Now, in the beginning of the mandate of the current Commission, we have adopted the competitiveness compass. And ever since, indeed, competitiveness has been our buzzword. Where are we going with Europe, with our economy, and at what speed? And a lot of tools and debate has been put around this term. While we all embrace this as existential, as fundamental for the prosperity of our European Union, I think we also need to look at our social compass. And our social compass, for sure, is the European pillar of social rights. Because while the competitiveness compass is about the direction and the speed with which we want Europe to travel, the social compass, the European pillar of social rights, makes sure that we all get there and not just a few. And I think this is what European citizens really care about. That when we discuss about the competitiveness, the investments, the advancements in technology that we want in AI, in raw materials, in manufacturing, in automotive, in agriculture, in transport, that it is reflected in the working conditions, in the motivation of the workers in those sectors, and in the prosperity of every citizen. So in this spirit, I will appreciate that the discussions and the conversations that took place yesterday and take place today are happening. Of course, we all agree, and I will not stress too much that the European social model is part of our unique selling point in the global competition. But it is important to understand that we need to adapt to the current realities with our social model. And that means not adapt in the sense of giving up, of reducing rights, but in the sense of being able to understand how do we make sure that the right to training or the access to training, to skills, is connected with the competitive sectors that Europe has a chance to lead, where Europe can generate more turnover. It is important to look at how we adjust to AI in the productivity, in the technological flows, but also in the management of people. How do we make it so that it is embraced both by small and big companies, but also by workers alike? It is important to look, and when we look at the European Pillar of Social Rights, to look at what does it mean to have a social right in terms of regions that are affected by climate change. What does it mean to have access to water, to electricity? But the topic of the discussions today and yesterday is quality jobs. And I think what is important is to reflect how essential quality jobs are for the competitiveness of Europe. How can any sector be competitive if it lacks skilled workforce, motivated workforce that is available to support that sector? This needs to be a shared discussion between the employers and the workers, between member states and the European institutions, that quality jobs are absolutely critical for the success of any industrial sector in our Europe. And it's not just about technology, not just about capital. More importantly, however, I would propose that we analyze the importance of quality jobs from the perspective of our democracies, and of the feasibility and future of our political project of the European Union. We can see that this illusionment, that this connection that many Europeans sense with what we are doing in the public arena, in the elections, in their messages. We need to be able to reconnect. And of course, the way that we reconnect is by showing that we focus to provide good working conditions, fair remunerations, safe workplaces, just to name a few. So this is important, the dimension and the strategic role of quality jobs in supporting our democracy in Europe, in supporting the future of our political project of the European Union. I think we also need to look, because we've just proposed the budget for the next period, 2028-2034, at the importance of investing together. And here my message is, of course, also to member states. We invest from European level with European funds, but the effort is also, of course, on the member states. Together we need to look at social investment like an investment with the most important of return. An investment in people, in the quality of the training, in the quality of the workplace is essential. And that is also an important part of our conversation. In the end, of course, what we reflected upon also is the idea that beyond the three Porto targets that we have, that charter our action, focus our action, member states, European institutions towards 2030 to fight poverty, to increase employment, to increase training for adults, we need to converse, to talk, to reflect about what it would mean to have a measurable target or indicators, let's see, on quality jobs. Because while we see that in Europe the number of jobs has increased, poverty has also increased. In-work poverty has not disappeared. We need to define the importance of social dialogue in the quality of jobs, especially with the advent of AI and algorithms in the workplace. It's ever more crucial that we have strong social dialogue so that we are able to harness the benefits of AI, but have a human-centric approach as well for the workforce. So many challenges that need to be reflected in the idea of a quality job that could be measured, not defined. Could it be measured? Could it not? It is a question. It is important that we reflect upon it, because just having precarious jobs is not enough. There are sectors that offer good working conditions, good jobs. There are sectors that can offer only precarious jobs. So it is our role as policymakers to reflect and to find ways to act on this, not just to, of course, support a theoretical, let's say, debate on quality jobs. Of course, as you know, in December, we will launch, the European Commission will launch the Quality Jobs Roadmap and a proposal for a Quality Jobs Act, reflecting on the important dimensions that I've mentioned. This is an important message on our side, but the debate, I think, is much wider and much more important. And it has a political, a social, and economic dimension, as I've tried to emphasize. I would conclude by quoting a former president of this beautiful country, our host of Portugal, Mário Soares, the architect of Portugal's European integration. It's a beautiful, simple, clear quote, that progressive societies must necessarily be societies imbued with freedom, justice, and well-being for all citizens and not just for some. And this is the spirit of Porto, and I hope this is the spirit of our work together. Thank you again, and I wish you successful debates.
Thank you very much, Madam Executive Vice President. Let me quickly note that because the event ran over time, as sometimes happens, the Executive Vice President might need to leave us before we complete the opening ceremony, and that is to make other important obligations that could not wait. But we're very grateful that you have been with us since yesterday morning. Thank you again. Our next speaker is the Vice President of the European Parliament. I'm delighted to give the floor to Mr. Younous Omarjee.
Dear Vice President Mînzatu, dear Minister Rosário Palma, dear Madame Frederiksen, dear members of European Parliament, dear Yolanda Diaz, ladies and gentlemen, it's a very great pleasure for me to be here, you all. And I would like to also address you to the greetings of President Roberta Metsola and of the European Parliament. Some short message. First, European Union was not born only to trade goods and for the market. European Union was born to protect people, to defend dignity, to prove that peace, freedom, and justice can live together. That promise is being tested, and the pandemic reminds us our fragility. War actually has scared our continent again. Inequality has deepened, and technology, and in particularly intelligence artificial, is rewriting our lives faster than we can grasp. And across the world, democracy itself trembles. In such moment, social Europe is not a choice. It is our shield. It is our compass. Without it, growth is a law. Power is brittle, and Europe risks becoming a shell without a soul. Ladies and gentlemen, we must be clear. An economy that exploits will collapse. A society that excludes will divide. A union that forgets the fight against inequality, against poverty, will not survive. That is why we fight for jobs and for quality jobs. Not just any jobs, but work that gives pride, stability, and fairness. And ethic jobs, because it's what young people ask us now. Work that allows people to build, to dream, to belong. Intelligence artificial will shake the foundation of our economies. If left to profit alone, it will widen fractures. But if we guide it with justice, it can open a new horizon of innovation, of productivity, of shared prosperity. Europe cannot be a spectator of this revolution. It must be its conscience. Cohesion, social and territorial, is not a charity, it is our destiny. An Europe that rises together will endure. An Europe that fracture will vanish from history. That's why European Parliament will fight for cohesion policy in the next budget. Yes, we have moved forward. Minimum wage, protection for the most vulnerable, equality between women and men, and the directive about platform workers. But it is only a beginning. We must go further, faster, and deeper. Colleagues, others build their strengths or army and empire. Europe must build its strengths on values. Our unity is our sovereignty. Our justice is our power, and our dignity is our future. And social Europe, it's not a vain word. It is not only a concept and a theory. It is the living heart of the European project. If we place people at the center, if we give dignity at work, if we embrace technology with fairness, then social Europe will not be only a speech and only a dream, but it will become reality, and it will be Europe truth. And more than truth, it will be Europe's soul. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, Vice President Omarjee. Our last but not least of speakers is the Minister of Labour, Solidarity and Social Security of Portugal, Madam Rosário Palma Ramalho.
Senhor Vice-Presidente do Parlamento Europeu, Senhora Comissária, querida Roxana, Senhora Secretária Permanente do Ministério do Emprego da Dinamarca, excelentíssimos membros do Governo português, senhores ministros dos outros Estados-membros que aqui estão, caros amigos, senhores representantes de outros governos, senhores ministros da CPLP, senhores deputados, caros parceiros sociais europeus e caros parceiros sociais nacionais, minhas senhoras e meus senhores, é com muita satisfação que me dirijo novamente a todos os participantes do Fórum Social do Porto 2025, um evento cuja importância no âmbito da agenda social europeia não precisa de ser enfatizado. Durante o dia de ontem tivemos a oportunidade de debater e refletir muito livremente, muito abertamente sobre competitividade e justiça social, mobilidade dos trabalhadores, empregos de qualidade, que é o tema central deste evento, e o equilíbrio entre a vida familiar e profissional, que na verdade faz parte de empregos de qualidade. Constatamos que a União Europeia está a ser moldada por grandes tendências que não podemos esquecer neste debate. Mudanças demográficas resultantes do aumento da esperança de vida e da baixa taxa de natalidade, uma população, portanto, mais envelhecida e, por isso mesmo, uma redução da força de trabalho que desafiam, por um lado, a sustentabilidade dos sistemas de proteção social, mas também aumentam a necessidade de cuidados de longa duração e também significam, em certa medida, uma redução dos recursos para forças de trabalho. E no mercado de trabalho persistem desigualdades que exigem atenção. Jovens, mulheres, trabalhadores mais velhos, trabalhadores com deficiência, migrantes, continuam a ser sobre-representados em empregos mais instáveis e pior remunerados, aumentando o risco de pobreza. Analisámos ainda as várias dimensões que definem empregos de qualidade, salários adequados, que garantam vida digna e boas condições de trabalho, nomeadamente em matéria de saúde e segurança, o necessário equilíbrio entre vida profissional e pessoal, o que passa também pela igualdade entre homens e mulheres, como grande objetivo, por uma conciliação mais equilibrada entre homens e mulheres das responsabilidades parentais e flexibilidade para mobilidade e transições de carreira. Também falámos da necessidade do acesso à formação e ao desenvolvimento das competências que são fundamentais para o crescimento profissional e para a adaptação aos desafios da era digital. Por fim, reconhecemos a necessidade de uma proteção social abrangente que cubra desemprego, doença, maternidade e paternidade, acidentes de trabalho, velhice e invalidez. E, por fim, chamámos a atenção para a necessidade de garantir o acesso a serviços sociais de qualidade e uma efetiva aplicação dos direitos laborais. Durante a sessão de hoje, e porque sou a última desta fase, vai-me fazer a transição, analisaremos como os empregos de qualidade poderão contribuir para uma Europa mais competitiva, dando novamente atenção à conciliação entre vida profissional e pessoal. Daremos ainda uma perspectiva global a este tema, através da participação dos parceiros sociais nesta construção e do olhar de países terceiros e de organizações extracomunitários. Realço os seguintes aspectos que nos devem guiar, no meu entendimento. O modelo social europeu continua a ser e deve continuar a ser a nossa marca. O desempenho económico sólido, que é outra forma de dizer competitividade, e os direitos sociais devem caminhar lado a lado. Uma economia dinâmica não antagoniza a política social, mas antes constitui uma condição essencial para reduzir a pobreza e reforçar a equidade nas nossas sociedades. E, por fim, investir nas pessoas. Investir nas pessoas enquanto trabalhadores, investir nas pessoas enquanto cidadãos da Europa, porque a Europa é feita para as pessoas. Senhoras e senhores, faço votos que as discussões e considerações deste fórum no dia de hoje sirvam para demonstrar e reforçar o nosso compromisso relativamente à promoção de empregos de qualidade numa Europa competitiva e pessoal. Conto com o vosso apoio e contributo para que possamos encontrar uma visão e uma ambição comuns. Muito obrigada.
Thank you very much, Madam Minister. I thank the Executive Vice President once more for being with us and give her the opportunity to leave the stage for her next important obligation. Being an excellent host, the Minister will accompany her to the door. That is the Minister of Portugal, of course. And we'll take a very short break until the Minister returns to continue with interventions by the social partners. Please stay with us. Thank you very much.